great, fantastic. And firstly, a very warm welcome to all our supporting brokers. And just again, thank you for tuning in to today's session. I know that we're all bombarded by millions of invites to webinars and these kind of digital, functions and insight sessions. So thank you for choosing SHA today to spend your Friday morning with us. We hope that we're going to entertain you and share with you some very good insights. I know Nick has unfortunately logged off there, but I'm going to suggest Nick has his house swept for bugs, because the National Corona Command Council, I think, might have been tuned in there, because as he hit the nail on the head, his Eskom power seemed to go off. So Nick, go and get your house swept there, mate. Anyway, I think I'm going to just be sharing with you guys when we got into this this new world of ours a couple of months back. I asked our team of underwriters across the business to just put their heads together and to give some thought to some of the elevated risks that that are likely to come here into the economy and permeate the businesses of our clients. And so they've done some great work here, and I'm going to share some of that feedback with you. It is I just got to get this all up and running. So Simon, just let me know if it's all.
Yes, it's perfect. We can see it.
Fantastic. And right, I'm just going to do one more thing here. So presenter view. Simon, you taught me all of these great tricks, so thank you. All right, sure. And yeah, there we go. All right. Yeah, so really, it's not too much of a detailed dive. I'm not going to bore you, our participants. I'm cognizant of the fact that it is a Friday, so I'm going to keep it fairly high level and fairly light. But really, across our lines of business, we identified from the 30 odd years of data and experience that this business has had, we wanted to unlock some of and unpack some of the elevated risks that we see coming into our new world. I'm going to touch very high level on the economic crisis, talk about the commercial crime landscape, and then get into those risk themes. But of course, and Nick, I think, gave us a nice introduction. Here are some of the high-level numbers that I just updated yesterday from The Economist magazine. But we all know that whilst this coronavirus has impacted 10 million plus people around the world in a direct way, and obviously we don't want to, and I don't want to downplay the human tragedy there. The economic crisis is impacting billions of people's lives today, and it is expected that it's going to impact billions of people's lives across the globe for quite some time to come. I mean, that said, I don't want to get into too much doom and gloom, because I think as people around the world, it is what it is. And I think if we try and keep as much of a positive attitude about this and get out there and try and change it, we can change some of these numbers. But you can just see there, China's Q2 GDP bounced back very nicely. They had their impact was in Q1 2020, so they had a very strong second quarter surge in GDP, but they're still looking to come down to 1.4% growth, and they're normally at about 7 to 8%. And there you can see the numbers across the EU, the US, Britain, and then South Africa. So for now, we're looking at coming off 7% in 2020. That's probably on the conservative side, I reckon. Most importantly, though, the unemployment rate. We went into the COVID crisis, with an unemployment rate, official rate of around 30%. And of course, that is expected to surge dramatically during the course of 2020. And that is going to be the real knock-on effect of these lockdowns. And again, my own personal views, I think, align with what Nick shared earlier on, that these lockdowns sensible. But I'm not going to talk about that. There's lots of information out there and views there. So just looking at the suite of products that SHA are involved in, that we insure across those different product classes, I asked the team 2 months ago just to put their heads together and come up with some ideas. some ideas that we could take back to our brokers, and hopefully our brokers can take these back into their conversations with their clients. SHA Santam Group, whilst we provide insurance to help clients manage their risk and manage their balance sheet and income statement exposures, we really want to get the conversation focused about how do we help clients mitigate risk? How do we, let's help them assess risks, let's help them mitigate risks, avoid losses, with insurance really being the last line of defense in a risk management program. And as we get into each of these lines of business or product classes, I just want to remind people of a famous quote by William Shakespeare, that desperate times breed desperate measures, because there will be a common theme that really runs across all of these elevated risk ideas. Just to introduce the conversation, the economic crime landscape in South Africa, again, pre-COVID, was looking horrendous. PwC 2018 report on economic crimes indicated that they've been the highest in the last decade. And this was, as I say, pre-COVID. 80% of South African businesses, so 4 out of 5, have experienced and incurred losses due to economic crimes. And then just a little bit of a flavor of the range and the diversity of the economic crimes. Crimes involving consumers defrauding businesses, 40-odd%. Obviously, cybercrime, as expected, is showing its hand up as being a major contributor. And then internal frauds, in particular from senior staff, 1 in 5 businesses. SHA, that, as you know, has been a specialist commercial crime underwriter for many years now. I'm glad to say that we've pinned back our exposure to commercial crime, and that's not because we're trying to be difficult with our clients on there, but it's almost becoming an uninsurable risk. Our 10-year gross loss ratio is well in excess of 100 to 110%. Now, you just can't run an insurance business when you're paying out, for every 1 rand in premium, you're paying claims of 110 rand and more. In particular, out of that 1 rand in premium, we have to pay acquisition costs, brokerage, and admin. So the losses are just astronomical. And of course, it's becoming a very tough class of business to insure, because the losses are now not fortuitous. They're almost guaranteed to happen. So a big pushback there. And we're going to have to try and find, I think, solutions between insurers, brokers, and their clients to say, how can we manage this risk better? How can we mitigate risk? And really have insurance providing a real top layer of balance sheet protection. So as we get into the detailed areas of risk, just some of the things that have picked up on our radar screen in past years. So under our broad form or public liability classes of business, we anticipate and expect that there's going to be a big uptick in slip and trip scams. People are under financial pressure. They've got bills to pay, they haven't paid bills, medical aid bills, etc. And we've seen it in the past, where all of a sudden at shopping centers, at offices, anywhere, there's an expected surge in people claiming that they fell, slipped, tripped, and wanting to sue a person for damages and for reputational and for harm. So you can expect that. Then food poisoning and infection allegations, again, with the same mindset in mind. Spread of fire claims, acts of arson to cover up potential fraudulent situations, acts by employees. So I think we need to really be watching out for that. And then, of course, the big one, cost-cutting actions. I guess in difficult times, tight economic times now, businesses are going to be hard-pressed to cut costs, to take some short corners, I guess, and this is where we, are expecting to see a surge in potential product liability, defective workmanship in the liability class, where companies, as I say, pull back on budgets, reduce quality control procedures. So, that's what we expect. It's pretty high level. There probably are many more other potential risks, but those are some of the key ones that we've come up with. And then I've given a few points on risk mitigation tips, keeping CCTV CCTV footage up and running, improving it, looking, very often we've seen in managing cases that good CCTV footage has really helped to pick up on slip and trip scams. A big commitment to maintaining quality control processes. We urge clients to think long-term. The short-term thinking might be to cut costs, but really we need people to just think about the brand and reputational damage. And then, of course, staff training across all aspects of the business to deal with some of these increased risks. Getting onto directly the issue of employee fraud. Again, we ran our survey last year and we covered fraud because it's such a topical issue. Just some stats I can share with you. Between 2008 and 2017, the average claim value of internal commercial crime within a business increased fivefold. That's 500% between 2008 and 2017. And then 30% of cases do now involve very senior employees, CFOs, CEOs, etc. And those employees have the ability to essentially override your typical internal controls in a business. As a result of that, we now and have experienced frauds and losses that go well above 50 million rand and topping 100 million rand in many instances, which has created severe sort of reinsurance treaty impacts because these losses are really big. So that was our experience. As we get into this now, this world where the economy has been so hard hit locally, globally, of course, our employees become extremely vulnerable. I mean, many of them will be facing financial hardship as a result of cutbacks in salaries, retrenchment scenarios. So there's going to be a lot more vulnerable employees working for us in our business. And when people are facing these kind of desperate times, they can't pay for certain basic, food, roof over their heads, medical aid, etc. They'll be greatly tempted to potentially put their hands in the till and steal. And then, of course, there's the crime syndicates who obviously also target. They know that employees are vulnerable, and these guys go in and they will target employees to collude with them. And you've heard the saying, take the cash, or take the bullet. So they're given no option. Of course, we've already seen it, increased in organized crime syndicates. I mean, it's at times like these where organized crime, this is the best time when things are in chaos like this, when we have prohibition, etc. Our big crime syndicates are hard at work 24 hours a day. And of course, they're going to target businesses. We also anticipate that many businesses, because very often commercial fraud is committed over a very long period of time. The typical pattern of behavior is that the fraud starts off small and then builds and builds and builds. So as the guilty or as the employees get away with small amounts, they tend to get more blazing about it, and the amounts become bigger. And they actually start to get away with it over a very long period of time. How they get away with it is essentially they're able to roll cash. And I think what's going to happen right now is because many businesses are coming into severe cash flow constraints, the rolling of cash is going to become difficult. And so we anticipate a lot of fraud that has been committed well before COVID is going to be uncovered over the next 12 months. Just again, looking at some risk mitigation tips, of course, a big focus and a continued focus and investment in your internal controls and audits. Now is not the time to be cutting back on those kind of things. It's the time really to be investing in them. Continuous lifestyle monitoring and audits. Controls, obviously, in respect of dismissed employees, looking at how you handle the dismissal of employees. They often become, disgruntled employees and can target your business. Data analytics, etc. So just the basic things. I think businesses are going to have to pay a lot of attention to the typical fraud controls within their businesses, because you are going to be targets of it in a big way. It's going to come like a wave. Of course, cybercrime. a new area of fraud within businesses, whether it's committed from within or from typically from outside, hackers, consumers within a business. Again, just sharing some key stats with you when we did our SHA risk survey last year. And I'm guessing these numbers, if we ran the survey today, we'd show a big spike in these numbers. But 20% of businesses have been attacked in the past 24 months. That certainly surged. 35% in businesses, 1 in 3 have paid ransoms, and the average ransom amount is increasing exponentially. And that was pre-COVID. So, of course, with all of you now having experienced our new way of working, people now working from home, using networks and fiber networks that possibly are not secure. So the whole work from home issues, their hardware back at home, not under the same level of surveillance and control, has massively increased businesses' exposure to hackers, cyber attacks, ransomware, phishing. Of course, unsecured information now being taken to the home through hardware, etc. And our new POPI Act having been signed into law creates massive exposure in terms of fines, penalties, even jail time for companies, and that was recently now eventually signed into law. So again, a big exposure there expected, and so businesses are going to have to really up their game in terms of employee awareness training, updating software, vulnerability assessments, and ensuring that people are adhering, and employees are adhering to all the strict protocols that are necessary now that they are working from home and not coming in and logging onto the network, which is more controlled. Okay, so there are ways to do it, but businesses are going to have to be extremely vigilant in this regard. Then getting into our employee accident health and employee wellness, and this is a big area, I think, of potential opportunity and risk for businesses. Of course, directly there's the COVID infection risk, and all of us now, whilst we're working from home, it's not ideal for all employees, and over time, more employees are going to be brought back into the workplace. And so very strict protocols are going to need to be followed to ensure that there are not major outbreaks, which creates disruption. It has reputational impact. There are now fines, jail time, etc., for breaking the rules for clients. And of course, employees who are sick are not productive, and all sorts of things go wrong. So that's going to be a big impact. We have found in the past that there are a lot of businesses who are now planning on redundancies or planned redundancies because they have no control over this. Very often, sometimes will show up as disguised forms of disability claims. So businesses and insurers and brokers are going to have to be alive to that opportunity where companies might try and present, as I say, increased disability claims, which are in effect redundancy efforts within the business. Of course, when employee morale drops and employee morale, there's a very, very big risk that employee morale will be dropping. I mean, people are under immense stress, anxiety levels have crept up, and when employee morale drops, there's normally a big spike in workplace accidents. People just don't pay the same amount of attention to the detail. They lose energy and they start dropping the ball, and that can create major, as I say, workplace occupational health and safety incidences within a business. And then, of course, crime-related work in the workplace injuries against employees. I think just 2 days ago, I was reading about the Vodacom stores that were attacked in the Tiger Valley mall. The guys walked into a mall and just walked in cell phones, laptops, and just start filling up. And of course, the mental anxiety impact of those employees, potential injury and harm when guns are pulled out and even used in instances like that. Employees driving around with valuable items in their trucks and their buckies, etc., being held up, hijacked, and again, so we expect a big surge in potential workplace injuries. And then, of course, just the general increase in stress-related health problems, so which then convert into other kind of illnesses, which may be covered under these A&H policies. So we're expecting a really large spike in these kind of incidences. I think now is the time more so than ever for companies to stay as close as possible to their staff. We are physically much more disconnected to our staff working from home, but we really need to up our game in staying connected and encouraging staff and staff care programs more so than ever through this crisis. We need to look at enhancing physical security within our businesses, given that there's going to be a big spike in crime, in particular where you have high value items such as cell phones, laptops, jewelry, etc. at the workplace, cash. The use of specialist claims investigators are going to have to be brought in across the A&H field to look at kind of these things. Obviously, a massive increased safety awareness campaign, and then strict COVID compliance issues at the workplace are going to be necessary. And then looking at our motor fleet business, we write quite a lot of corporate motor fleet business. What do we expect there? Well, of course, the big one there would be syndicate hijacking schemes jumping into action, looking to obviously steal cars, steal loads, and stuff that's been carried around. And then, of course, potential employee collusion or just criminals targeting those employees and stealing the assets, etc. We, like all insurers across this chain, again, companies potentially presenting with fraudulent insurance claims, looking to manage cash and desperate times. Again, of course, inflated motor claims repair costs. We'll all have to be on the lookout for that. And then cost cutting, and again, this spoke to my earlier point, guys running big fleets, maybe looking to cut back on their number of drivers. This is going to definitely lead to potentially increased driver fatigue, especially on long haul trips, and that results in more accidents on the road. And then cost cutting in terms of tire replacement, maintenance on vehicles, again, leading to more accidents on the roads. So again, just some of the basic risk management tips there, talking to your clients about improving tracking technology, engagement and support programs, again, comes back to just staying very close to your employees and communicating with them and understanding their engagement levels, etc. So that wraps up, I think, there. I'm not going to really talk much at all about directors and officers because we have one very clued up lady, a part of our team here at SHA, Taboko, who will be talking to you in much more detail about directors and officers coverage, particularly now under COVID. So I'm going to just really jump to my final slide and conclude by saying to everyone here listening in today, our future tomorrow really depends on what we do today, what we commit to today. And just to highlight, I think firstly, employee engagement. This is now a time really that all businesses, more so than ever, need to find innovative ways to stay as close to as possible to their employees. We need to balance short-term thinking in terms of managing profitability with long-term, with the long-term impact on the business. And we really need to, as leaders in the business, demonstrate visible, authentic, and empathy with our staff. And I think that really kind of wraps it up from my side. Thank you. Back to you, Simon. I'm going to stop sharing there now. Thank you.